Hello, everyone, and welcome to And the Beat Goes On. I'm so happy that you have decided to join us on this day. We are joined by our special guest today, Miss Maria Ellis. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. And let me also introduce, and we'll have them introduce themselves, some other folks who are on our panel who are probably no strangers to you guys at this point. Why don't we start with Nahshon?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nahshon. I've been going to the choir school for about 10 years, and it's been quite the experience.
Great. And Brittany?
Hi, I'm Brittany Stanton. I am the Director of Education and Assistant Conductor at the choir school.
And again, Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been wanting to catch up with you for quite some time, and your name has been on a sticky note for a while, and I'm glad we finally have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be on the show today and talk with you and everybody else. This is really it's a great day to have a conversation.
It is a good day to have a conversation. And at the head of this show, we are going to just take a moment and observe a moment of silence to be in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who continue to struggle to be able to live their lives in America. So we will observe a moment of silence. Thank you. So just as we get ready and we start the show today is Blackout Tuesday. So today is a day in which organizations across the country are deciding that they are not doing business as usual. I absolutely applaud and support folks who are continuing on with Blackout Tuesday today. When thinking about our show and if we would move forward today, I decided that we would move forward today because I think it is important that we have conversations in I think that it's the only way that we'll come into an understanding. And so we will have some challenging conversations on today's episode of the And the Beat Goes On. So thank you for everyone who is tuning in today. We really appreciate it. And we will have some conversations. So we're going to start off on the lighter end. First, Maria, tell us, how are you doing in the course of this pandemic that's going on? Everyone on your end is healthy and safe?
Yes. Pandemic is it's been it's been challenging at sometimes, but you know what? It's also been great. I'm a mother of three, and my sister is with me, and my husband is here, and we've had a great time of just bonding and being with each other. Normally, I am an on-the-go person, and I had lots of engagements that had to be canceled. But even with cancellation, the time that I've had to spend with my kids and do like the crazy mom things that we normally don't get to do. Like I think last week we built a fort in our living room, and you had to go through this maze and you had to find the things that the kids hid in the fort. And I'm not a spring chicken. I'm not old, but I'm just not as young as I used to be. So crawling through little small couch spaces are, it's not normal for me, but you know what? I did it and it was fun. And just having that bonding time with my family, it's been great. I've been taking the time of pandemic as a time of just resetting everything that I want to do and taking the time to pull in the things that, we say, well, I'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. Well, later came for all of us, and I was able to get some things done. So it hasn't been horrible, although I do miss my choirs. Shout out to St. Louis Children's Choirs 1NC and the City of Music All-Star Chorus. I miss my babies. But other than that, it's been fine. It's been fine.
Good. And how did you kind of pivot during this time with your choir? So did you guys just, obviously you guys didn't meet in person, but did you guys do any sort of online instruction, any sort of distance learning? How did you kind of stay connected, or how are you staying connected with your students, your singers?
Well, I have the privilege of, well, the honor rather, of conducting 2 community choruses. So St. Louis Children's Choirs, that chorus, it was a brand new chorus and we just started it in January. And I had 29 new babies, 3rd through 6th graders. And we had just completed our first concert on March 1st. We had a rehearsal the 1st and 2nd week of March, and then things shut down. So St. Louis Children's Choirs, we pivoted fast. We immediately got on Zoom and we started our online rehearsals like everybody else. One thing I try to do with our rehearsals, because my children are so young, was to try to find ways to keep them engaged. So one thing that I do during rehearsal is I tell stories during rehearsals, or I read books to them, and I try to make it as big and elaborate and crazy as I can be when I'm telling these stories to keep them engaged. So I continue to record stories on YouTube that I can share with them and still keep that same crazy energy. We took all of our music, and since they had music at home, we were able to still rehearse. We would record lessons, and then every other week I did a Zoom call with them. My high school chorus was shut down because we transport those students to our rehearsal facility, and like we take care of everything for them. And that chorus we have to shut down. But every week I check in with them to make sure that they are doing well. We played The Masked Singer, where they had to film these videos, and they can do whatever they had to do to keep them from being, keeping us from guessing who they were. And if they won, I sent them like a Cash App blessing or whatnot to keep them engaged. But other than that, like I just tried my best to stay in contact with them. My younger students, before we transitioned, they had a reading challenge. I challenged them to read 500 books by the end of the season. And I'm happy to report that before the deadline, they had already read 500 books.
Great, awesome.
So they were still engaged, and I've learned some new things. I have a Roblox account now, and I don't understand Roblox, but all the kids play. So I've been playing. I don't know why, but I've been playing. And I've been TikToking before pandemic. I had the privilege of being taught by several choirs how to do these TikTok dances, and dancing is, and I know I feel bad for saying this, but I am not a good dancer, but I will fake it, honey. I will make all of it look good. And I was doing that with my choirs and learning. I wanted to meet them where they were. Yes. And so that's kind of what I've been doing.
Awesome. Well, very, very busy. And then on top of that, you've also been leading some conversations with the wider sector. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So the first ACDA Nats Chorus America call, when that call was over, it was like somebody laid like a weight on top of my chest. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do? And so I've been playing around with these trampoline talks. And so I immediately grabbed my phone and went live on Facebook. And I was like, I just need to talk to some chorus people and like just talk about, what we can do. And during that call, I was like, you know what? Now is not the time for us to go doom and gloom. Now it's time for us to get creative. Like, let's talk about what we can do. Although in that first call, they didn't really give us a what we can do. I was like, let's come up with some things of what we can do. So I've been hosting calls called Let's Get Creative. The first call, we had about 75 participants, which I think is great for a Zoom call. But we just talked about different things that other choruses were doing. Then I hosted a call for the church and community choirs, because I think those choirs have really been impacted. With the school choirs, not saying that everybody hasn't been impacted, but with community and church choirs, like those things, for some people they don't exist. My church choir hasn't rehearsed together as a group since March. So how do we keep those singers engaged? And so I hosted those 2 calls. And then yesterday I did a different call, which was a what can you do in church choirs with your rehearsals? Because I was listening to all these other calls. Dr. Valerie Johnson hosted a call, and everybody was talking about everything that we can't do, which we understand. This is what we can't do, but here are some ways that you can still have rehearsal and what you can do. And then kind of just trying to be just like a little inspiration to everybody, showing them what we can do and how we can unlock the creativity that's in our own heads and how we can use that to be a blessing to everyone. So that's all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing all that work. It's been great to see, all that you're doing. I don't know how you're doing it. It's pretty incredible. So thank you for all that you're doing to contribute to what we're doing. So I also want to take a moment to can you tell us a little bit about Girl Conductor and what that is? And for those who might not know.
Yes. So Girl Conductor is my baby. It's my brand that I started. And you know what? It started from, to be honest, when I've been a choir director since I was 12 years old. I started directing church choir when I was 12. And I wanted to have a career as a conductor. Like, that's what I wanted. I was in choir all through school, throughout high school. And I didn't know that you could have a career as a full-time conductor. I thought that the only career that you could have would be as a classroom teacher. And shout out to every classroom teacher that's watching, but I knew that wasn't my calling. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what I have to be, I know I don't want to be a classroom teacher. So I took the business route, and I spent a lot of money on a business degree that I am not using, that was not making me happy. And then I worked for AT&T for 12 years, which was great for the money, but not great for my sanity. I mean, there's only so much selling of, and back then that's when we were selling like caller ID and long distance. And for people who are younger, that's when you had to pay to call somebody who lived in another state.
Yeah.
So I was that person, I was that salesperson. And I just said, I don't want to write on my grave that like Maria was great, she sold caller ID. Like I said, it has to be more to my life than just selling phone service. And then I found out that I could get a music education degree. And so I attended the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and like was full in music education and got the degree. And then I was looking I'm a big merch person. I love logos and brands. I love that. And I just never could find stuff that said conductor. And then I also noticed that I wasn't seeing a lot of women being promoted as conductors. You normally just see men. So I was like, well, if I don't see it, then I'll make it. And so that's where the Girl Conductor brand came from. And it's just, as you can see on my wall where it says girl power, it's just celebrating women who conduct. And that's band, choir, orchestra, whatever. It's just celebrating women and inspiring not only just women, but girls, and inspiring all people that you really can do whatever you want to do. If you really put your mind to it, like there's nobody stopping you from doing what you want to do but you. There's nobody stopping you but you. We put in all these little fears of, oh, I can't do this because somebody may think this, or I can't do that because somebody may think that. Yeah, I'm at the point, and maybe it's because of age, I don't care what you think. If this is what is given to me to do, then I have to follow what I'm supposed to do and do it. So that's where it came from.
Sounds great. Well, where can we look up online more information about Girl Conductor?
Oh, you can go to www.girlconductor.com, and you can find not only merchandise, where like this beautiful shirt that I'm wearing, but not only merchandise, but you can also find lessons. And since we're talking about diversity, there's a set of solfege, the solfege symbols that we use. There's a set that has a lot of melanin in it that you can use in your classroom. And to me, things like that, that's some of those times we don't really think about how some of these things we have in our classroom, how they may look to other kids. So I have a classroom that has all type of students in it, and I only see white hands making the symbols, then to me, yeah, I know that that's there, but I don't feel included in that. So having a set of hands, and you can download this for free off my website, but having a set of hands that are in color, like that's important for a person like me, especially if I'm the only Black person in your classroom. That means something to me. That means you see me. And not only that you see who I am, and who I am is a person of color. I think that's why so many people say, like when people say, well, I don't see color, no, we need you to see color. I need you to see me, for my color. This is who I am. So there's a lots of lessons and stuff that you can download, and more things will be added soon.
Awesome. And I will also say you also have some warm-ups on there. I know I have gone there. There's one that
Looks like he froze. This happens occasionally, you know how technology goes.
Yeah.
But I was looking at your website, and those warm-ups are really great. Do you have a favorite that you do?
My favorite warm up is probably the so the raindrop warm up was really fun because I did that with my choir, and they were able to add. Welcome back. They were able to add some TikTok dance moves, and the choir got really into that warm up. So that's one of my favorites. Marvelous is a great warm up video because on that video you see all colors of people singing and engaged and excited about just singing about being about God doing marvelous things. It's just a really, really great video. So that's super inspiring. But yeah, anything that I can take where the kids can dance to it, I'm all into it. Because even though I can't dance, I love trying, and I don't have a problem like looking, cool but kind of silly dancing with them.
Awesome. Now, with the Marvelous one thing I will say for folks who are wondering how they can include more kind of diverse music in their classroom, and people are always looking to go from 0 to 60. So by that, I mean, they look to go to do the big gospel piece or the big spiritual piece without ever having any training wheels put on. So that's a great warm up. There are other ones too that are kind of in the gospel style where you can, Dr. Dilworth has got a bunch of them too, where you can start somewhere and start in a good place where you can really talk about performance practice and technique and style. So I always am a proponent of doing that. So teach your kids how to sing the style, teach your kids the importance of the repertoire and the history of it first. And you can do that in the warm-ups, and they can continue to graduate on to doing more repertoire. So I think that's always a great thing. I'm going to switch over to Nahshon here. Before we kind of get into our larger and the meat of our conversation today about what's happening in our world. Nahshon, do you have a question for Maria, Miss Ellis?
Yeah. So I think everyone's been wondering this, but what got you into music?
Oh, that's a great question. And please don't call me Miss Ellis. I am not that old. I am under 40, barely, but I am under 40. So please, y'all can just call me Maria. I don't even let my kids call me Miss Ellis. They call me Miss E. Miss Ellis is my mother-in-law. She's a beautiful woman. But yeah, that's not me. What got me into music? You know what? My father is one of 9, and they had a group called the Chapman Singers that they were singing when I was growing up. And so I spent a lot of time going places with them and watching them sing or sitting at rehearsal. So music was always in our house. My mother currently is the president of her church choir. So we were, as young children, we were always dragged into rehearsals to watch them sing. And I learned at an early age that I could pick out who was singing wrong and figure out notes when I was younger. It got me in a lot of trouble because I didn't know how to mute that. So they would be rehearsing. I'd be like, you know what, that's not right. And they was like, no, Maria, shut up. And I was like, okay, let me not do that. But I was able to figure that out at a young age. And I just loved it. Before there was, I feel really old telling this story, but before there was like iPads and iPods and all that kind of stuff, there was a radio. And you used to call into the radio and say, hey, I now know that this was illegal, but we used to do it. Can you play this song so we could record it off the radio? And we would do that. And then my sister and I, we would sit up all night and just like sing songs and try to figure out all 3 parts. What's the soprano? What's the tenor? What's the alto? And we would do that all night long. So I didn't know then that I was developing my oral skills, but like developing that ear. And then I love music. I'm always singing. In my car when I'm driving, I have in-person concerts by myself, and I just love everything about music.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you for your question, Nahshon. And Brittany, do you have a question for Maria?
Yeah, but first I want to share. There's a comment from somebody on Facebook who loves your half quarter eighth song, and they did it with their kids. They translated it into Spanish to use with
Oh,
their kids. So that's awesome. Thank you, Paula, for sharing that with us. I'm curious, as we're about to lead into this bigger conversation about the times we're living in, what would you suggest as best teaching practices for someone teaching in the classroom that is not a person of color, teaching a group that is a group of brown and black children, so that they feel valued and that they see value in their history um, and of course in times like these that they're not overlooked?
that's a great question. Okay. All right, put your brakes on because I wanna answer this question as real as possible. I've watched, and don't, this is not an all thing. This is something that I've observed. I've watched teachers who are not of color teach kids who are of color, and one thing that I want teachers to always be cautious of is to appear as the white savior. Um, like that's not necessary. Kids feel your heart. I mean, people in general, we can tell if you're genuine by your heart. So you don't have to put on any tricks or mechanics to teach. You just teach like you're teaching normal, like you're teaching everybody else. Just teach. But when you're teaching, make sure you teach all of the history or whatever you teach it. Don't only teach don't just teach Bach and Mozart. Those people are great, but those people are not American. They're great. They're not American. So teach American music. And if you teach American music, the Negro spiritual, even though they weren't considered Americans at their time, that's still music that comes from our soil. Gospel music, the jazz music, the music that comes from our soil. If we teach that, then we're covering everybody in the classroom, and they don't feel like I'm only learning this one style of white music. I'm learning everything. And then just be genuine in your heart when you're teaching. When I student taught at a school that was predominantly white. And I didn't try to change who I was when I was teaching them. I just taught. And sometimes when I teach, I speak in slang. That's who I am. I just taught, and I just taught them as just my regular kids. And kids appreciate that. So just teach. Don't put on no type of airs. If you really don't believe Black Lives Matter or something like that, don't put the sign up if you don't believe it, because kids will see right through that. Just be authentic to who you are and teach with love. I hope that helps answer your question.
Great answer.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's a great answer, and it's a great transition into kind of what we want to be kind of the meat of our conversation today. So there is a lot happening in this world right now. It is on top of the pandemic, which in this country alone has killed 100,000 people in this short span of time. We are also at a tinderbox moment. We are kind of seeing things that we saw back in the civil rights movements. We are seeing people who are demonstrating because of police brutality, because of systemic racism, institutional racism, and just also ignorance in this country. And what I want to talk about is, first and foremost, how do we need to respond as a choral community, as choral conductors? What can we do? And what can we be doing to further change minds and hearts?
Oh, that's a great question. And sometimes that's a hard question to answer of what can we do? Because if people's minds are not already open, there's not really a lot we can do. If you're not really interested in having real conversations across the board, then there's not really a lot we can do. As choral choral directors, musicians, what we can do is we use our instruments to music. If you look back through history, you can always find what was going on through the music. So anybody who's writing music right now, like this is a great time for you to be writing about what's going on. You got strong subjects. You got a pandemic, and then you got systematic racism that's been going on forever, but it's highlighted really right now at this point. It's really, really highlighted. So you can be writing songs and poetry and sharing your art. I truly believe that music brings us together. Music is healing. So that's what we could be doing, programming songs when we get back to school next semester, programming songs that encompass all of the people and what we're going through right now, because everybody's feeling it. Black, white, Asian, Latino, Hispanic, whatever. Everybody is feeling the weight of this. So we have to get out of our boxes and program music and sing music and share music that's for all the people, not just for one group of people.
I certainly agree with that. And I think that we have a responsibility, as we have a very serious responsibility as choral singers, as choral conductors, as music educators, as artists, to be speaking to the times that we live in. And I never really like to take that, I never take that lightly. And I think it's always important. It shouldn't be something that we're doing just kind of when a terrible tragedy happens, but it's something we should be doing all around, all year round. We should be thinking about these things. It shouldn't take a tragedy for us to want to be able to respond and to reach out to people of color and to think and reflect on systemic racism in our country. And I think that we and I include all of us, everyone who has studied Western music, we all have propagated that Western classical choral music is right, and that all other forms of music are subservient or less than. And I think that's a problem. And I think that when we take a look at the choral structure, we can also see that there is high art music, higher brow music, things that, you hear at a conference, it was great, it was dissonant, it was blah, 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 all the things. We've all been there. We've all seen those more esoteric works that we see out there. And those things are always given a little bit more of a platform than the kind of indigenous music from folks from Africa, or from works that are derived from our history and slaves in this country. So I think that is one thing, is like, as I kind of take a look at it, it makes the kind of systems in place that we're ready to go outside and protest, and people want to know what can I do? What can I do? You know what you can do? You can program different music. You can be more inclusive in your classroom. You can do spirituals. You can do gospel. You can do music by Black people who just write in different styles. They don't have to write spirituals and gospel all the time. I know I don't do that just all the time, and so I really would like to encourage people who are listening today to think a little bit more broadly about what the experiences are like in your classroom or in your rehearsal room. And so one of the questions I have for you is, outside, I first started singing in my church, and it was a predominantly Black church. It was all Black church, actually. It wasn't predominantly, it was 100%. And so that's kind of what my first choral experiences were. But when I find myself, when I talk about my first choral experiences, I actually start usually with my first whitewashed Western choral experiences. And I usually start there like, oh yeah, I was in the choir and we sang this and we did the post and blah, 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 and kind of discount that other experience that I guess I had growing up. So my question for you is, what were your experiences like, I guess, singing, and we heard a little bit about your family singing and kind of and being in church, but what were your first experiences like singing in choir? Did you in choir? And you know what I mean by choir. We mean like not a church choir, not our kind of church choir. We mean like in the academic setting or wherever.
Well, it's very interesting that you asked me this question. I'll be more than happy to tell you about it. Um, my first experience in choir was actually with the St. Louis Children's Choirs. That's where I currently work now.
Look at that.
In the 6th grade, there was a honor choir that the St. Louis Children's Choirs was putting on, and it was called Children in Concert for Excellence. And that was the first time, 6th grade was the first time that I held an octavo. So what they did is they sent home like 5 pieces of music. It was Beach Du Bamir, it was Jabberwock, Feel Good, and a song called, I think it's called Music Made Together, or We Gather Here Together. But that was the 4 songs that we were going to perform. And they sent a tape home. I sound really old saying it. They sent the tape home, and I would sit next to the tape recorder and learn the music. I didn't know then that I was supposed to read the notes because I'd never learned to read music. I thought she was just reading the words and the notes were for the piano player. So I would just sit with my tapes and learn the music. And my siblings, I'm one of 4. So I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers. They was making fun of me because of the music, because it was really straight up and down sounding music.
I'm gonna talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. And so it even Feel Good, because Feel Good was the gospel piece, but it didn't sound like our gospel that we sang in church. It still sounded like straight up and down music. So I'm like ready to drive because that's what I'm used to at church, and it never got there. So that was my first experience with choral music. Now, that was 6th grade. I didn't have an experience with music like that again until my first year of college at Millikan University. Because even in high school, we sang a lot of stuff. We was taught a lot, everything we was taught in high school. And I was only, I'm gonna clarify a statement. I was in gospel choir all 4 years, but I was only in concert choir my senior year. And that's because choir was at the same time as French, and I really wanted to take French. With a name like Maria, or like Marie, you gotta have French. So, I took French. And plus my older sister took French and I wanted to be like her, so I took French. So taking choir in high school, we didn't learn to read music. We still did everything by rote. We had music in front of us and we read the words, but she still was really just teaching us everything by rote. So I realized that when we went to a festival at SIUE, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, we went to a festival and they passed out music to us. And it was the first time we saw it. And the kids who came from the white schools were just singing along. And we was looking around like, how y'all already know the song? Like, why weren't we taught the song? And our teacher was like, oh, they're sight reading. We was like, well, we sight reading too. We reading the words, but they already know it. How they already know it? Nobody taught it to them. And she was like, no, they're reading the notes. We was like, oh, okay, well, okay. And so, I mean, we had great ears. So we was able to pick this. The first time we went around, we was kind of lost. The second time we was fine. We had it. But those are my experiences. I didn't have the experience. When I got to college, and I went back and got my second degree when I was 31. So that was back in 2013. And the first thing they passed out, we were doing John Rutter's Gloria. And they passed it out, and I was like, you know what? This college stuff is not for me. I need to quit because I have no clue how to read any of this. And my mentor, Dr. Jim Henry, raised his hands and they started and people were singing. And I was like, yep, I probably need to quit because I don't have a clue how to even read all of this and sing. I have no clue what I'm doing. But I mean, luckily I had great mentors and great people who helped me and I was fine. But those were my first experiences.
And Nahshon, I'm very curious about your kind of experiences because you've been singing in your school, in addition to with us here at the choir school. And you've also experienced two directors at the choir school. So you've been with me for 7 years, but you've also had 3 years with other directors who are different and did things a little bit differently than kind of what we do now. So can
Yeah.
you talk about your choir experiences? Did you feel like what kind of music were you singing? I guess in your schools, how did you feel? And did you feel like as a young Black man of color that you were being reflected in that music?
Uh, well, I was singing, uh, hmm, how could I explain? Well, I did go through a multitude of different conductors, like you said, and um, I got a lot of, I gained a lot of experience, you could say, because as I went through different conductors, they would always have me like, hmm, I wasn't always in the same part. I
Mm-hmm.
could say I wasn't always in the same part. Like there was one of my conductors, I think his name was Mr. Labory. Yeah, one of
Oh, I think we lost you for a second there, Nahshon. Your mic went out. We might, I think we might have lost your mic there,
oh,
Nahshon. Oh, you're
sorry.
back.
I'm back. But yeah, so with my school, my experience with school, uh well, in middle school I hmm in middle school it wasn't really that big because it was predominantly black kids in my middle school class, and I didn't really have any main majority problems. Hmm.
And what kind of music were you singing in that choir? Did you feel like it was music that is kind of that you would consider Black music, or what? How would you kind of describe the music that you
Well,
were doing in middle school?
we sing huh, we sing a lot of like mixed music. Like it wasn't really spaced or like focused on one genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, we sing an African piece.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another song we sung. What was it called? It's that John Legend song. But yeah, it was oh, All on Me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sung that. Um, okay, let's probably move to high school now. Okay, high school. So while I was in North Carolina, it did kind of affect me since not just because I was down in the South and things, but it my class was really divided up into a lot of races. There was Latinos, there was blacks, there was Caucasians, and I guess it didn't really. I guess no one really didn't mind it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like we still got work done, and we still moved on. So not.
Mm-hmm. So overall, pretty mixed experience there, and you felt like there was music that you were able to connect with.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
And oh, I forgot to tell you
Mm-hmm.
about the choir that I'm in now. The choir chorus that I'm in now. The school choir. Um, and it's the same for that too. I mean, my conductor will make jokes here and there, but they're not really all serious because we understand that he wouldn't do that. He's a cool guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
And
yeah, huh?
so thanks for that overview. And I know one of the things that, that we try to be very cognizant of with what we're doing, and in the choir school program is we want our students to, and I know this is true of your program, Maria, we want to have Black and brown kids be able to sing music that they can identify with, while at the same time preparing them to be able to go on to the next level, whether that's middle school, high school, college, and to be able to live and compete and sing in this mainstream world, meaning that as much as I would love to just kind of sing, church songs all day, things from the gospel thing all by rote, I also know that if when these students move on, they're not going to be equipped with certain skills that they need. And so if you're a teacher that's wondering, what can I be doing in my brown choir and community, kind of to Brittany's question, and this is very interesting that you said this too, Maria, you need to teach them some fundamental skills of sight singing and some basic musicianship skills, because what we do is we unintentionally box in students of color. And so we're like, oh, well, they can't, or, this is, da, 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 da. And I feel like the story that you just said, Maria, is what I hear from so many Black and brown kids. It's like, I actually never read music until, and fill in the blank is the constant thing that I hear. And so I think that would be a great thing for teachers to do. It's like, look at this brown child and say, like, you know what? I know you might be a little bit behind in reading because the systems are failing you, but guess what? We're going to do some solfege today. And, I think that's important. What are your thoughts on that?
So the first thing before, after I'm a mother and a wife, a wife and a mother, I'm an educator. It's my job to educate my kids. And as a music educator, I have to educate them on all kinds of music. So on our concert, if you was to come to any one of my concerts with any one of my choirs, we do all styles of music. Mm-hmm. We do not just sing gospel music. If you get a gospel song, you're gonna get a real gospel song. But other than that, we're going to sing all kinds of music. So we're going to sing the Mozarts. We're going to sing some Black composers. We're going to sing some white composers, some Hispanic composers. We're going to sing all styles of music. And I think that makes them well-rounded musicians. But I also, you said something that kind of caught me. I also want people to know that if you're singing Black music is not just gospel music. Right. You had Dr. Garrett on here a few weeks ago, mm-hmm. and he talked about all kinds of music that is composed by Black people. There's operas, there's symphonies, there's all kinds of music. So you're doing yourself and your students a disservice if you say, we're going to do something Black, and then you pick the African piece or you pick the gospel piece. And I want to talk about the African piece. I'm not from Africa. I don't have a connection to Africa as some people from Africa do. I don't have that connection because I'm not from Africa. I've never been to Africa. What I know about Africa is things that I've either read in a book or seen on TV. But when you program the South African piece of music, to me, I don't have a connection to that. Because to me, that's just like programming something else from France or something from Brazil. I'm not from there. So to me, if you want to make a connection with Black, brown kids or whoever, especially with Black kids, I'll speak about Black kids and Black. Pick something from somebody I know. There's lots of people I know about jazz. I know that. I know about gospel. I know about rock and roll. I may not have known that came from Black people, barbershop music that came from Black people. I may not have known that, but pick music that comes from America before you take me across the waters. I'm for it. Do your South African piece, but please give me a piece that's from my people in America that I know, that I have more connection to. To me, that draws me in more than the the typical South African piece. And I say that because I sit through so many concerts, and I often feel, and even though this may not be this may not be their intention, but I often feel like, oh great, they gave us the African piece to appease the Black people. Great, thank you.
Right.
I'm not from Africa, but thank you. Or you gave me the gospel piece. Okay, I can tell that you didn't listen to the person who wrote this. I can tell that because of the way you did this. I can tell you didn't listen to it at all. But thank you. It's your fun piece at the end. Thank you. You don't have to do that. Your gospel piece can be at the beginning. It could be in the middle. It does not have to be at the end of the concert. You don't have to do that.
And that's exactly, you know, something that I 100% agree with that. And that's something that I always champion. And if you do want to do one, why do you have to do a fast one at the end? You know, like, you know, one of the things that was challenging, and I know Brittany and I had a lot of conversation on, was when we did our most recent trip to Rochester, we ended with "We Shall Overcome," and we're like, "Ooh, can we?" And we did, and I'm glad that we did, because it was definitely not the typical thing. And in the middle of the set was Total Praise, was Anthem of Praise, and so it's like you can, you know, move these pieces in other places. And then another thing I think that you said that's really interesting too is about the pieces, and South Africa tends to be where a lot of people go because there's such a rich choral tradition in South Africa. But one of the things that I always think about whenever doing pieces from South Africa, and there's a woman in my choir who always will mention this, Dr. Susan Thomas Holder. She always mentions and always reminds us that we need to be thinking about the influences of colonialization on that music, because oftentimes when you see the translation, you see these Christian texts, which is completely not what these pieces would have been. And South Africa's history is a mirror to that of the United States. And so I definitely think that we've got a lot of reflecting that we need to be doing when we're doing those pieces from other countries. You know, we did the Misa Luba for the first time, and it was interesting and a fascinating piece to kind of work on and to understand colonialization and how that piece is actually quite different than many of the other pieces, because it was written with with people from this tribe. So I think it's really, 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 really interesting with some of these issues that you're bringing up. And you're right, doing an African piece is not helpful to your Black students.
Yeah, they're not from Africa. I mean, you may have a few that maybe majority of them are not from Africa.
And I know people feel good about doing it and feel very pan-global and open-minded, but it really does not. And I think that's okay. And it's okay to, I think, recognize your students as Black and brown students. And that's definitely a term that I definitely use, because it's, you know, people feel differently about African-American because they're like, I don't know, I've never been to Africa, you know? So I think that's a really, an important thing, one, to claim the language of the people. It's okay to say Negro spirituals. That's what they are. They were Black and they were not Americans at the time. They didn't have the right to vote. So it's okay to call them Negro spirituals. It's okay to have Black students. Not everyone has to be an African American. You know, I'm saying, like, it's just one of those things that we have to really be and really, really thinking about, really thinking about. And if you had some challenges that you would like to give to some of our folks who are looking today, who are not people of color, what are some of the things you would challenge them to do?
I challenge them to, when I started teaching the where I student taught at, there were many students in the room who were transsexual, or they were or transgender. I'm sorry, transgender. And I apologize if I said it wrong. But they were going through the process of changing, and forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but they were going through the process of changing. And that was new to me. That was so new to me, because I didn't know anyone who had actually gone through the process of the change. And so I had a choir class that had, I think I had 4 transitioning students in that one class. And so one day, instead of us singing and having choir, I said, guys, can we talk? And he was like, yeah, Miss E. And I want to understand, because I don't know what you all are going through. And I really want to understand, because I don't know. I come from a very religious background. My mother and father were preachers at one point in time. We were very strict. I grew up not wearing pants. I grew up not going to the movie theaters. I grew up very, very strict. So I wanted to understand. So we had a conversation. And during that conversation, I said, this space is safe. And I need you guys to educate me, because I don't want to accidentally say something and offend you, and then you never trust me as your teacher. I don't want to do you like that. And also, I want to respect you, but I want to know. I just want to know. And they told me, and they talked to me, and they talked to me about things that were offensive and things that were not offensive. And they talked to me about what they were going through and things like that. And I was grateful for that conversation, 100% grateful for it. I think for people who teach Black and brown kids who don't know about them, just talk to them. They want to tell you. They want to tell you what's going on in their world. They want to tell you how they feel. The kids I've been watching protests. I've been watching kids who are out protesting. And if you don't know what that feels like, or if you don't know what it's like to go through a protest, talk to your kids. I had a friend post a video of a girl who they gave her the mic, and she started singing Amazing Grace. She's a Black girl, and she just started singing Amazing Grace. And it unified all the people who were out protesting. Everybody joined in with the song. So use music to be that unifier, but also just to learn about other people. We don't know about each other because we don't talk to each other. And we don't talk to each other at the levels where we actually need to talk to each other. And so since we don't do that, then we just automatically assume that people are one way or another. That's a dangerous thing to do. So in the choir world, all we do is we just need to talk and take your feelings off your shoulders and just talk and actively listen to what people say. If somebody say, Maria, you offend me because you wearing dangly earrings. And then my next question is, okay, I want to understand, why do these earrings offend you? Oh, well, they offend me because in my religion, we wear dangly earrings. If you wear that, then that makes you look a certain way. Oh, okay. Well, I understand your, now I may not take my earrings off, but I do understand why that's offensive. And I think that's the best thing that we can do. If you don't know, just talk. If you don't know why people are marching or why they're protests, just talk. I can tell you why. I can tell you how it is to be stopped by a police officer and sit for 30 minutes and have them run my name through every system on the planet. I can tell you how that is. I can tell you how it is to have the police show up at your house and say that your daughter was looking through people's windows when all she did was cut through the yard to go through to her friend's house. I can tell you how it is to have your husband pulled over by the police and have him questioned when he's wearing business uniform with a work badge on that says AT&T, but he fit a description, so he was stopped. I can tell you about those things. I can tell you how it is to pray over a 9-year-old boy who was the only Black boy who was in his class at some point, and have him be scared and nervous because somebody said the N-word on the bus and he didn't know how to handle it. I can tell you those stories. Those are real stories. But if you don't listen to me or want to learn from me, or you say, well, people are overreacting, then you never get to hear how it is to walk through the shoes of somebody who's living through it. So, okay, I can go on.
I know. I mean, like, and I think that's a really great thing to say. Like, I had a friend who asked me a great question, and I was like, I'll be happy to answer for you. Why are Black people so angry? I was like, let me start. It was a genuine question, and I was like, thank you for asking. Actually, thank you for asking, because it was asked in the most sincere possible way. And it was like, well, let me talk to you about it. And of course, it's about my own personal experiences and the things that I have seen. I was like, and if that's me, I'm one person. I'm one person. This is happening to people on a every second basis. I was going to say on an everyday basis, but it's every second. So I think that is really important. We have a question that's coming in from YouTube here that I want to cut to. I know we're running short on time here, so I'll have Brittany read this next question.
Well, actually, it's funny that question popped up right at the beginning of this last little bit that you were talking about, Maria, about how, should we have these conversations with our students and why is it important? And I think the short answer was yes, and it is important, vital even. But I'm curious if we can maybe wrap up with so my background, I grew up in a very rural, very white county, and I spent my entire education all the way through college there. And it wasn't until I got a teaching job that I was in what I would say a more diverse classroom. The percentage of brown and black children in my youth was very, very low. So how would you recommend starting these conversations in those type of communities where the voices are either not present or are feeling maybe fearful of making their voices heard because they feel like they are still the minority in their community?
Are you speaking of voices for white people or voices for black people?
No, how can us as white educators in a classroom where there are not brown and black children.
Okay, I understand.
Yes, bring these conversations to the surface.
I think you have the conversation. I mean, right now, black, white, whatever you are, the world is looking at the United States right now. So this is no longer a black thing. It never was, but it's definitely not a black thing right now because it's happening in multiple cities around our country. So one thing that I did when I taught in a school that was predominantly white, and there were, at that time, I think there was somebody who, what's it called? It was a school shooting, but it wasn't a school shooting, but somebody sent something in that where there was a threat. It was a threat of a school shooting at their school. And so, but also there was, I think at that time there was something going on where the Muslim community was being discriminated against by some people in our government offices. And so we had the conversation. I said, what do you all think about this Muslim event? And they were, the kids were really into the conversation, and they was like, oh my God, we should treat them like this because they're this and they're that and they're this and they're that. And I said, I definitely hear what you guys are saying. I said, now, I'm going to run up under the desk because a white student is getting ready to come in the classroom. And they said, well, why would you do that? And I said, well, school shootings typically happen by white boys. And they was like, well, why would you run under the desk? I said, because I don't want to get shot. And they was like, but he's not going to shoot you. And I said, well, I don't know that. He's white. And when I look on TV, it's white boys who shoot schools. It's not black boys, it's white boys. That's what I see. Because when the white boy comes in here, I'm going to run and hide under the desk because I don't want to get shot. And then it's like, but Miss E, that sounds crazy. I said, okay, now if that sounds crazy, think about everything that we just said about this Muslim community. Think about everything that we say about the black community, the brown community. If it's crazy on this end, all of it sounds crazy when we stereotype people into one thing. That's crazy. So what I encourage people to do is have conversations and just lay it all out on the line. Lay it out. Have a conversation about like what does white privilege look like? Because some people don't realize that they're privileged. As a black person, there's some privilege that I have about being black when I'm at a black school. I have a privilege there. The black kid's gonna react to me differently than they would to you if you came to my black school. That's the privilege that I have of being black in my all black school. So there's privilege around it. And we have to talk about that. And we just have to have these conversations where people take your feelings off and you just listen to what we're saying. And in listening, when you don't understand, you say, wait a minute, I don't understand it. And I really, really want to understand you. And I think when we can sit and talk and people can say, wait a minute, I don't understand why that offends you. then without being emotional, Maria can say, this is why. This is why that's offensive. And we can do that not just with race, we can do it with sexuality, we can do it with all these different things so we really can understand. And then once we understand and break those barriers, then we heal. We're not just putting a band-aid over something that's not healing. Mm-hmm. What I see us doing most of the time is we put the band-aid on, but we forget it's stuff, and I'm gonna be gross, it's stuff still coming out of this sore, it's stuff still oozing out. Well, you never fix the sore, you just put a band-aid on top of it. And that's what I want us to do, to talk, break down, and let's just learn and love on each other and heal inside out and make our world a better place.
That really resonates with me a lot, Maria, because we've got this virus going on and we think that we've got more than one virus going on. Let me clarify. I think COVID-19, it's bad, and there's no question about it. It has really rocked our world, and it has done that for this 2-month period. But institutional racism and inequities have killed people for centuries, for millennia. So this virus of hate, this virus of fear of having real conversations with people is a problem. And I think it really starts with exactly what you're saying, having conversations. And I think, to Brittany's point, if you're a white teacher that teaches all white students, you have a responsibility and you are culpable, because they're not actually going to meet a Maria, right, to be able to share personal experience. They're not going to meet Nahshon to know that, hey, guess what? Just because he's a 6-foot kid, 6-foot big Black man doesn't mean he's a threat to you. But you, as the white teacher teaching white students, you are the most culpable. And you are the ones that are going to really have the ability to shape public opinion and to shape the thoughts and beliefs and value systems of our next generation. And I don't know what to say about that. More, to expand on that is, I think that is definitely the realest thing that you can do is, if you're a white person, have more conversations with other white people about what the struggle and what's going on, and to help people understand. Because the problem is we don't change unless we can sympathize or empathize with someone, which means we got to know them. But that's not the way it should be. You don't need to know someone to be able to feel and to express, dismay with how they're being treated. And so I think that is kind of the height of where we can be as educators, as choral conductors, is being like, guess what? There are no people of color in this community, but we're still going to have these conversations. We're still going to do this music, and we're still going to do this thing. And I think that is extremely powerful. Of course, I always like to tell people, we don't need white people to talk for us. We will speak for ourselves, but we do need allies, because, changing hearts and changing minds is everybody's responsibility. And that's just kind of the thing I would like to kind of underscore for folks who might be listening today. What I do want to do is I want to play a little bit of a recording. I'm going to play all of it. It is a great recording. I'm just going to get ready and share my screen. This is with you and your choir. Let me make sure I share the sound. And can you tell us a little bit about this performance here that we're about to watch today?
Yes, these are my all-star babies, the Sheldon City Music All-Star Chorus. This is recorded at the St. Louis Cathedral Basilica. We were special guests as part of a 3-week series that led up to Black History Month. This features my soloist Arissa and Everett, and the choir singing "Hold On Just a Little While Longer, Everything Will Be All Right." One thing I want you to notice about this group, I got all kind of kids in my group. So it's not just Black, it's all kind of kids. But together, they have learned to learn each other's differences and become a real family, which I love. But this is Hold On Just a Little While Longer. Perfect for this time.
Absolutely perfect for this kind of time. All right, here we go. And let's hope that Zoom cooperates with me. If not, Brittany will take over. Here we go. This is Hold On Just a Little While.
Hold on.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Maria. That was wonderful and lovely, and definitely something totally timely for today. So we're going to get ready, and we are going to begin to bring things to a close. We're going to do our quarantine quiz. We're going to lighten the mood a little bit here. Times are dark, but guess what? There is hope, and we want you to know that. And we can still have fun and challenge one another. So we're still going to end with our quarantine quiz. So this is a game that we'll all play with you. And so we're going to ask about silly things that you might have done over the course of this quarantine. And you'll just put your finger on your nose if you have done that. And I'm going to get a timer on my iPad here for 90 seconds. Let me just get it here. And so the timer will go off when we're all out of time, and you'll see a picture of a duck that'll spin and quack and do all sorts of fun things. So whenever you're ready, Brittany.
Ready. Worn pajamas for 24 hours or more. Cleaned everything around you way more than normal. Attempt a virtual choir video and fail. Have to beg someone to stay home. Pretend to be frozen or muted on Zoom. Became that person at Costco. Purchased more than 10 rolls of toilet paper at a time. Made a new recipe. Gave into Tiger King. Skipped a shower. Coughed and wondered. Taken a face mask selfie. Spent more time on social media than off. Made a TikTok video. Baked bread. Cut your own hair. Did a puzzle. Played a board game. Slept past noon. Forgot to brush your teeth. Worked from your bed. Buy snacks for a week and run out a day or two after going to the store. Hid away in your room because your family was driving you crazy. Shopped online for something you didn't need. Binge watch a show in 48 hours or less. Spoken to an old friend.
We are all out of time. We want to thank you, Maria, for joining us today. We want to thank everyone else who came and joined us as well. Thank you for coming in for our conversation. I think it was a timely conversation. We hope that you'll share this video with your friends and other folks who are in the choral community. If people want to keep up with you, Maria, how is the best way for them to do that?
They can find me on all social media at Girl Conductor. That's Facebook at Girl Conductor, Instagram, Twitter at Girl Conductor, TikTok at Girl Conductor, or they can go to www.girlconductor.com, or they can go to YouTube. I have a new YouTube channel where I'm going to be dumping all type of choir lessons and choral things. So Girl Conductor on YouTube. Please follow me and like and subscribe. I think that's what you're supposed to say.
Yes,
that's it. Well, thank you again for folks who have been watching and following us on all of our episodes. We won't have And the Beat Goes on this Thursday because there's an ACDA Leadership Conference. And then next week, we have our big online virtual gala, which everyone is invited to. You can find out information on our website. And because of that, we'll be panicking and running around like crazy people. So we won't be here next week, but we'll be back in the following week. We have not gone away. Trust me, we are looking forward to having more conversations over the course of this summer. And again, thank you, Maria, for being with us. Thank you, Nahshon. Thank you, Brittany. We hope that everyone has a wonderful day. All right, take care.
Thank you.